Thank you for that introduction, I think. It was a little bit like, he's from the IRS and here to help you. It is true that we administer the MCAT and handle the application service, but we are much, much more than that. I like to believe that what we're most about is trying to improve the health of the nation, and that's totally dependent on you. You know, what my health status is 2 or 3 decades from now will really depend on your careers and what you do in them. You know, this idea that Dr. Salerno put out about how many roads can lead to a career in the health professions leads me to just want to say a few words about my personal road, because I think one of the best things you can take from this conference is, yes, there are people in this room who knew they wanted to be a doctor, a dentist, whatever, the minute they were born. They came out of the womb and they asked the OBGYN for a letter of recommendation. But you heard a story of somebody who hadn't, and that was my story. You think history was an interesting road. I was a philosophy major. And at the end of my 3rd year of college, I had 2 realizations. One, I was out of money. I did not come from a family of any means. My father never went to high school. My brothers and I were the first in the family to go to college. So I was out of money, and I also realized there were no jobs for philosophers. And I just wasn't sure. So I found a job. I don't know how many of you have ever been in the Colorado mountains. But I was fortunate to land a job because I'd taken high school geometry. That made me qualified to be a surveyor for the Colorado Department of Highways, believe it or not. And I worked on surveying Interstate 70 as it went through the Rocky Mountains. And it's beautiful up there. It was fall. I hadn't returned to school. I wasn't sure what to do, and I was making good money. And on a beautiful fall October Friday, just like you can only see when the aspen are turning gold in the mountains, I was up at the near Timberline, near the Continental Divide, where they were building a tunnel for Interstate 70 under the Continental Divide, and a plane came flying up the valley toward us, clearly too low, and burst into flames as it crashed into the mountain a couple hundred yards above us. Not everybody died. We carried some people down the mountain. And my life changed that day. I realized life is very serious business. And I may not have been sure what I wanted to do, but I should try something. And so when the job closed down that winter, I went back to Denver and I started taking night courses at an extension campus of one of the universities, pre-med courses. And years later, I find myself here. There are many roads. Somebody who's been a powerful speaker at this meeting in the past, Dr. Carmona, has a similar story. He's a high school dropout. He served us in Vietnam, where he was a decorated combat vet. He went back, got his GED, became a medic, then he went to nursing school, got an associate degree in nursing. And then I first came to know him a few decades later when he was the top physician for the U.S. He became our Surgeon General. Some of you may know he's running for Senate now from Arizona, trying to exert leadership from that perspective. So don't feel badly if your road doesn't seem typical, or even if your road is far from certain at this point. It will reveal itself. And all you have to have is the discipline to pursue it. So let's talk a little bit about career paths and how you find your road. First of all, you've got to give up the fantasy. I know there are aspiring Meredith Grays and Dr. McDreamies out there. But the reality is like that emergency room where a skilled physician who happens to be a leader is more than willing to wheel a patient on a gurney to x-ray. It's an interesting reality because it has this tradition. It's embedded in the Hippocratic Oath. For those of you who go to medical school, that's the oath you'll take. If you pursue nursing or other professions, they each have their own ancient oaths of commitment. So we have this part of medicine that is 2,000 years old that none of us want to see change. It's those values that Dr. Salerno spoke about. But what is changing, it's changing under our feet right now. And the thing that you have to be key agents in pushing forward is what I would call a cultural change. Medicine, for all of its greatness over the years, was too much on the left-hand side of the chart. It was built around the doctor as the expert. It was too hierarchical, right down to how long your white coat could be and when it was allowed to get longer. It was competitive. Just look at some of the pre-meds you've known and studied with. But that's not what we need as patients. What we need as patients is the culture on the right-hand side, and that's what you've got to help us build. I would argue that this also means it isn't all about grades and test scores. I can tell you for a fact, patients don't believe that. You will never see a patient who will ask you what your MCAT score was. In fact, our patients tell us they assume places like UC Davis are doing a great job at conveying medical knowledge to their students. We get very high marks when people ask what kind of job med schools do about giving you medical knowledge. Where they see us falling short is what they call bedside manner. Bedside manner is that culture. Does the doctor who walks in the room in the clinic or in the hospital room or in the clinic exam room, are they focused on you or themselves? Is it about their expertise or is it about you making your own decision? We feel, because of the spot we occupy, that we need to take this very seriously. Dr. Pomeroy is actually on our board of directors and has been a strong advocate for moving from an admissions that has been focused far too much. I'm not saying that test scores don't count for something, but they're not everything. We want to move from a world in which they're almost everything to finding applicants for med schools and others that really fit that culture I showed you on the right-hand side of the diagram. Team-oriented, collaborative, patient-centered. That's going to take big change, and it's going to take change on 3 fronts. In that red circle, we say academic readiness. Now, admittedly, academic readiness has focused on the MCAT, but the MCAT is changing in a bigger way than it has in decades. In 2015, the new MCAT will be out officially. There's already material on our website. I already see undergraduate institutions bringing out new pre-med offerings to acknowledge this. In terms of how it'll change, it's interesting. The group that worked on this, it was called the MR5 study. They spent 2 years looking at this. They didn't abandon science. There's a biology to illness. You do need quantitative skills. When you're writing my prescription, I would like you to have some quantitative skills to know those milligrams from those grams. So we're not abandoning that, and that will still be a core part of the section. But what about the social and behavioral sciences? If it's true, as we've been told this morning, that how healthy you are depends as much on social factors, on your income level. You know, if I wanted to improve the health of America most dramatically, I'd end poverty tomorrow. That means the social and behavioral sciences are highly relevant to medicine, and there'll be a section on those. There's been a writing sample that was generally viewed as worthless, I will say that in public, and admission deans around the room are nodding their head. It's being eliminated, but there will be a section, a verbal section, but it'll be focused on how you think. You may be presented with a social problem, or you may be presented with an ethical dilemma. It will be designed to try and get a window into how do you think about those kinds of issues. That's why I was so happy when all the news stories that talked about this generally said the same thing. It's about time to bring the MCAT back to being a tool that actually looks at something beyond core natural and physical sciences. We're putting information out there as much as we can because obviously this affects people who are undergraduates now. This guide is available as are practice exams, both for the current exam, and we'll have abundant practice exams for the new exam. We want to give you the tools to prove your academic readiness, but it's the other two circles I want to really highlight for you this morning. The bottom one is called pre-professional readiness. Nobody expects you to come to nursing school, medical school, dental school as a fully formed professional. That's why we're there, to help you become that. But we've realized that that doesn't happen by spontaneous combustion. We don't pull a van up, grab some people off the street, and turn them into professionals. We should be trying to identify what are qualities you have sitting there today that reflect a level of what we're calling pre-professional readiness. So this is a list, a group of admissions deans, some students actually participated in it, practicing physicians and other faculty. This is what we're thinking are the things that somebody who comes to the health professions should already be showing, perhaps not in full form, but should be able to convey signs of what can I put forward that shows I know how to work in a team and be accountable to my other team members. Have I shown respect in those challenging, difficult situations? Am I resilient? Richie Carmona, it was a resilient man who became our Surgeon General. And so letters of recommendation will change. Your own application will change. You will be challenged to say, here are things from my life that demonstrate I have these qualities that in turn make me a good candidate to be a true, fully formed health professional. And then there's that last circle, diversity. We've gone through a lot in this country. From being a country that tolerated slavery, to being a country that tolerated Jim Crow laws, to being a country that struggled. 50 years ago, the University of Mississippi this week admitted its first black student. We struggled as a country with diversity. And our initial reaction was to focus on numbers. You know, if this much of our population is Hispanic, black, American Indian, the numbers should be reflected more in careers like medicine. And I'm not here to say the numbers aren't important, but there's something more important. There's a gentleman at Michigan, University of Michigan, who's shown us this. He studies problem solving in organizations. And he studies the way individuals solve problems, and they have proven conclusively that a team is better at solving problems than a single person. That's why when I develop cancer, which hopefully I don't, but if I do, that's why I don't want just a good oncologist. I want a good cancer care team. Teams solve problems better. But guess what else they've found? A diverse team solves problems better than a non-diverse team. That's the bottom line value in diversity, and that's why it's so important that as a diverse group sitting in front of me, you're interested in the health professions. This question vexes a lot of you. I don't know that I would have had a career in medicine if I hadn't had the benefit of a very, very low tuition public university and medical school. We're working hard to try and turn the tide back on that. You're not at that point yet, but if you want to see some of the tools that will be available for you, they're on our website, tools that can really help you see not only what the loan and grant resources are, but how it can be managed over a career. We don't want our fees, the MCAT fee, the AMCAS fee, to keep any of you away. And that's why if you don't know it, you should be aware of the fee assistance program. where up to several multiples of the poverty level, we have the ability to waive fees for those things so that those don't become obstacles to careers in medicine. And then if you enter the health professions, medicine and others, you have opportunities like the National Health Service Corps to not only obtain a scholarship for medical school, but to do great things in those neighborhoods that struggle so much. So for those doctors of the future, if you want stories, my story is interesting, but I'm decades away from where you are. Go to our website, aspiringdocdiaries.org. You will find stories of people who are exactly like you in so many ways and how they've found their career paths to medicine. I know I focus on medicine because that's where I come from, but please remember we need health professionals of every kind and stripe. We are not going to get the job done with doctors alone. It's going to require teams. And please consider which career might be the best fit for you. I'll give you an example. We are not going to solve the primary care needs of my aging baby boom generation without more physician assistants and advanced nurse practitioners. It is absolutely essential for us to get the job done. So I just want to close and circle back to what everybody's talking about how does this all fit with healthcare reform, which, as mentioned, is not a new discussion, has been cycling through our country for a long time. Well, at least now, thanks to Chief Justice Roberts in the Supreme Court, we have one question answered. One of my more savvy staff pointed me toward Upworthy, this website. Turns out this was a boy at the beach with his father and he ate some sand. But the picture fits perfectly with the caption and he saw that. But you know what? It is constitutional. And we were very supportive of President Obama and the Affordable Care Act. But if Governor Romney becomes president, he said he wants to repeal and replace it. We'll be the first people at his door saying, replace it with what? We're doctors. We know the evidence. People with health insurance lead longer and healthier lives. You want us to support your plan? Tell us how it will do that, how it will insure more people. But in the end, you know, which of these people gets elected in a month? I think in terms of the health care my daughters, everybody has going forward is less dependent on them and more dependent on you. We need leaders now more than ever in the professions. Congress could write a health insurance bill, but they can't figure out how to take care of patients. We have to do that. Thank you all very much.